Now, South Africa's drinking water is not up to standard and, in fact, could have caused potential health risks. The latest Blue Drop report shows a decline in drinking water in this country. According to that report released by the Water and Sanitation Department, drinking water produced has deteriorated and, in fact, does not meet South Africa's national standards. Let's make sense of this for you now. Bring in Associate Professor and Research Specialist in Water Resource Management at Unisa. That's Anja Du Plessis, who joins us via our video link this morning. Prof, it's great to see you. Thanks so much indeed for making time, as always, to help us connect the dots, so to speak. We'll speak about the contents of this report in just a moment, but my understanding is that the last time government made this assessment was more than a decade ago. Does that sound right to you? In other words, is that standard practice, or did we wait too long?
We did wait too long. It's not standard practice. It's supposed to be a per annum report.
Wow.
The last report was published in 2014. That was the Blue Drop, the No Drop, and then obviously the Green Drop report as well. But last year, that's when they, for the first time, after I don't know how many years, almost a decade, released the new Green Drop and Blue Drop and No Drop reports. The report that the Department of Water and Sanitation released yesterday is not an audit report. So it's not a full report on what is actually happening. They did a sample of some of the water treatment systems as well as some of the water service authorities. So they only sampled a very small percentage, and then they came up with the conclusions, almost like trying to report on either progress or no progress. And if you look at what has been published yesterday, we're basically still where we were in 2014, if not worse.
Sure. And the sense I'm getting from you, given the scope of this particular investigation, is that the situation may very well be worse on the ground.
Exactly. So because they only sampled, I think, like out of the 151 out of 1,035 water treatment systems, they're saying that they're obviously the infrastructure thereof is in a critical state. This we knew already. We also knew already that over 90% of them are not compliant. In terms of the drinking water, this is it's a serious situation. I read yesterday that they have now declared that 5 out of the 9 provinces within the country has now had cholera cases. So they're almost sounding like they want to admit that there is a cholera outbreak within the country. And if you look at the statistics that they provided, you say that only 39% of the systems were excellent, 11% good, 9% poor, 41% bad microbiological water compliance. That's very worrying because microbiological compliance is very important for human health. And that's what we saw in the case of Hammanskraal as well as Vredefort. And now it seems like the can of worms has been opened, unfortunately, by the Hammanskraal community, with their members now unfortunately having to pass away.
Yeah.
So that is a big issue as well. Another issue is that they have indicated that 11 or 17 municipalities thereabout has not even tested their drinking water quality. So that is concerning because you cannot manage something that you do not know what is going on. And for so many municipalities to either not report that they are regulating their drinking water quality or either non-response, that is a major issue which the Department of Water and Sanitation needs to be addressed. And then also to say that only 50% of all of the systems that they supplied and monitored during the past year has actually responded to regulation letters, which asks them to take action and to work towards compliance. So if only 50% of all the systems in the country, the managers or whoever bothered to actually respond to a letter that was issued by the Department of Water and Sanitation, that is concerning, because that means that only 50% bothered to report back and to say, yes, we have received your letter, we acknowledge that we're non-compliant, and this is what we're going to do. So I see that the minister did indicate that they will release the 2023 audit report, which basically names and shames all of the municipalities, the wastewater treatment systems, etc. They will only release that after their quality assurance has been gone through the document, gone through the necessary processes, etc. And that will most probably only be released in July, August. Now, my question would be is, what do the population, the citizens of South Africa, what do we do with this information that we've now received.
Exactly.
Especially in terms of, the water quality is not compliant. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? What is the action plan in terms of that?
And that's exactly where I was hoping we'd eventually go, Prof. Part of the language being used in this report is that the water does not meet national standards. And I wonder what that means in layman's terms, right? So help us demystify that. What are these standards, and are they widely welcomed or accepted?
Look, the standards are there. They call it the South African National Standards 241. So that's different parameters that they have to measure in terms of supply. They measure operations. They measure microbiological, like it is in the report as well. So there are various standards. There's a standard for each one, like there's a standard for infrastructure as well. So it seems like the statistics that they have provided is basically just to say that, the standards are there. The letters that they issued said that they are non-compliant. However, once again, if almost more than 50% of your stakeholders or the people that are responsible for drinking water doesn't even bother to respond, that is a major concern. As I said, the major concern is the microbiological quality of our water, because that means that you've got either sewage contamination or you've got contamination by bacteria or any other pathogens. And that is the primary concern. And that's the question that we need to ask the minister, is to say, we know that there is a microbiological water quality issue within the country. We have a sewage water crisis. What is happening? What is the exact action plan? Because I can tell you now, if we look at the small sample that they gave now, when we look at the report that's going to be released in July, August, my predictions are it's either going to be the same as last year or actually deteriorated. But let's be positive and say that it's actually, increased in terms of compliance. But if we look at the statistics that they've provided, it's quite worrying. I see that they say that 11 municipalities didn't even report any water quality data. Now, that is a major issue.
Right.
Because then you don't even know what is in the water.
Exactly. And the question is, what are some of those officials potentially trying to hide, right? What happens with residents?
Yes, well, we need some transparency and accountability at this point in time. We can't have a situation like we had in Hammanskraal, where over 20 people needed to pass away before the government actually just responded and said, yes, we actually have a cholera outbreak. So we can't sit and wait now until the report in July. There needed to be steps needed to be put in place last year already. If only 51% of your municipalities actually responded, why are you only giving an interim report now, almost more than a year later? Why wasn't there steps put in place to hold these types of systems and municipalities to account?
Yeah. Briefly, Prof, if you can, what becomes the advice to people who suspect that they're living in municipalities yet that might be adversely affected by the poor quality of water in our country? Is it safe to continue drinking that water?
I would advise caution. My personal recommendation would be that people need to be cautious in terms of their water. If the water does smell weird or strange, don't drink the water. If the water is of a strange color, look, sometimes the water is brown, but that is usually due to soil and so on within the pipe water system, especially if it has been out of service. So in terms of that, I would say if your water looks weird in terms of color and it smells weird in terms of smell, I would not use it. I know that they have advised communities to boil their water and to clean their containers. So if you do boil your water, you eliminate the bacteria and the pathogens. If you do have the capacity to actually buy bottled water, then good for you. But most of the vulnerable communities and the rural communities within the country doesn't have that option. So I know that the municipalities, they have been told that they need to provide water tanks. However, we don't know the status of the water quality in the water tanks either. So I would just advise the population of South Africa just to be cautious and to make sure that they have steps in place to make sure that their water is okay.
Professor Anja Du Plessis, sobering conversation, but thanks very much indeed for your weighing in. Always a pleasure. Professor Anja Du Plessis is a research specialist in water resource management at Unisa. Thanks once again for your time.